Hi, Mr. Christopher Nolan. Namaste. Jai Shri Krishna. Yes, I'm speaking to you. It must be very surprising for you. And let me clarify I am having a direct dialogue with you. The dialogue is necessary in the context of your recent movie, Oppenheimer. And first of all, let me inform you about myself. I am Pankaj Singh Thakur and I am from India. And I'm a movie reviewer, writer, author, poet, singer, part time actor, painter, artist, lawyer, and much more. And because of my inclination towards movies in general and good movies in particular, I have been compelled to speak about Oppenheimer and to have a direct dialogue with you to raise certain issues. I am, first of all, basically a huge fan of your work and I am your admirer. So, that is definitely a disclaimer or a clarification in the beginning itself. I have been noticing your brilliant work for a very, very long time. You have done so well in terms of direction, writing, uh, and cinematography, and storytelling, and everything else. And I'm definitely a huge fan. And first of all, congratulations to you and your entire team, the entire cast and crew, for the success of Oppenheimer and for the satisfaction it has brought to all of you. And last but not the least, of course, the money it has made. Of course, money is a consideration. Congrats for that. The movie is of epic proportions, definitely. You have made it very, very carefully, and you have conveyed the message of nuclear disarmament very nicely. And at the same time, you have done the storytelling in a very, very nice and convincing manner. You have dealt with the lives and the turmoil and the politics and the scenario around the Second World War and also the aftermath of the bombings and the subsequent decades after the bombings. And all of that has been captured very well. And ultimately, you have tried to uh, convey that the world has been destroyed because of the development of the atomic bomb. And the world needs to be very careful while handling nuclear technology. And that is definitely a very big achievement in your case. I'm trying to uh, tell you all this because of your deviation during the storytelling. Your deviation and your uh, unfortunate uh, exaggeration and misrepresentation uh, regarding the use or misuse of the holy Srimad Bhagavad Gita has been extremely offensive for me and the billions of Hindus and other devotees of Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Lord Shri Krishna. I'm expressing my anger and dissatisfaction because of the insult you have inflicted upon the holy scripture and Lord Krishna himself. It's not right. I am I'm definitely a huge fan of your work and Oppenheimer itself. The movie is extremely good, but at the same time, the particular scene in which you have shown nudity and the casual handling of this holy book and the recitation of the extremely important verse from the book in a completely wrong and incorrect and offensive scenario. All this has caused pain, anger, anguish, and dissatisfaction for me and other devotees and religious people. Uh, Lakhs of or billions of Hindus or Sanatanis have been offended. You need to know all this. Apart from Hindus, there are people of other faiths, even Christians, and some Muslims, and few other people, Buddhists also, and many other people. Some of them have enormous amount of respect towards Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna, and the Hindu way of life and the religion itself. And when I speak about Hinduism or Sanatan, uh, I'm not referring just to the religion or dharma. I am referring to a particular way of life. I am referring to a civilization. Please note that Hinduism or Sanatan Dharma is the oldest religion on this planet. It is more than 8,000 years old. Please note, you can find all these facts anywhere. When the West, particularly the whites, were hunting in the jungles and mountains for survival, that was a time when the Hindu or the Indian civilization was already at its peak. It was at its zenith. It was thriving. There were extraordinary structures and buildings and palaces, houses, and the civil systems in place in the Indian subcontinent, in India in particular, when you or your ancestors were hunting in the jungles for survival. They were barely clothed. They were not able to eat properly. They were not able to cook properly. They did not have any scientific wisdom or knowledge. That was a time when Indians or Hindus were inventing and they were taking care of the other people around them. They were teaching the kids and the other disciples. So you need to know that you have offended an ancient civilization and the devotees. You cannot take Srimad Bhagavad Gita casually. Being from England and from Hollywood, you know very well that large number of celebrities are the devotees of Shri Krishna, Lord Krishna, the Hindu god, and Srimad Bhagavad Gita. All of them have extreme reverence for the particular text. And the few names are, as you know, Julia Roberts, Will Smith, Richard Gere, Robert Downey Jr., who has been directed by you in Oppenheimer, Cillian Murphy himself, and several other people like Miley Cyrus and Russell Brand and many other people. You can find them easily. So many people have been fascinated by the Indian subcontinent and the Hindu dharma or the way of life. Uh, I'm sure that you yourself know a bit about Hinduism, but still you have taken the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in an extremely casual and reckless manner. You have brutally insulted the Hindus. You have insulted me. I am your fan, and I have been hurt, and I'm expressing it on your face. Mr. Christopher Nolan, you need to know that you have to, first of all, apologize for the blasphemy, and secondly, you have to correct your mistake. You have to rectify wherever it is possible, and for the future, you need to take the corrective steps. You need to be very, very careful while writing and directing, and you need to know that you cannot depict, show, or misuse any religious text uh, during nudity or sexual intercourse or in any other bad, offensive, or immoral situation or during any such act. It has been done during the shooting of Oppenheimer and on the big screen as well. It's not right, Mr. Nolan. And I want to tell you more about Srimad Bhagavad Gita. This is the holy book that we have. Please read the cover page. This is actually a direct and clear and unambiguous translation of the original Sanskrit text. This is basically the English version of the Holy Scripture. When we hold it, we ensure that we are totally clean and fulfill all the norms of hygiene because the book is holy, it is divine. This book is basically a song of Lord Himself. This is basically the voice of Lord Himself. So we cannot take it lightly. When we hold it, we uh, hold while uh, showing or confirming our respect for it. We do like this. We say pranam and we feel that we are facing God Himself. This book, the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, is a part of the larger epic Mahabharata, which is enormous and huge. And there are 18 books within Mahabharata. This Srimad Bhagavad Gita is basically uh, within book number 6 of Mahabharata. There are basically uh, chapter number 23 to 40 of book number 6 of Mahabharata, and the particular uh, uh, story or the chapter is called Bhishma Parv. As you know, the story of Mahabharata takes you to the battlefield of Kurukshetra, where Arjuna, the warrior prince, is in a state of dilemma and confusion and extreme sadness because he's facing his relatives, friends, and other people who are close to him, and he has to ultimately fight with them because of the disputes and the politics. He is confused and he refuses to hold his bow, Gandiv, and the arrows. That was a time when his Sarthi or charioteer or maybe driver, the Lord Shri Krishna himself, uh, puts certain amount of wisdom in his mind. He educates Arjuna about the duty in front of him, the cycle of karma, and the importance of karma. Lord Krishna gives the gyan or wisdom of Srimad Bhagavad Gita to Arjun, and the particular uh, 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 narration or the voice of God has been recorded over the centuries in different forms. There is an original Sanskrit text of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and I have deliberately shown the English version to you. I have done some research on Oppenheimer and Srimad Bhagavad Gita, so you can rely on whatever I say, and you have to believe it. Uh, I'm not exaggerating anything, but at the same time, I'm not undermining anything, or I'm not misrepresenting anything. The Srimad Bhagavad Gita is basically 7,000 years old, so is Mahabharata. Hindus have certain scriptures which have to be respected and which cannot be disrespected anywhere in any form. You have to have some amount of understanding and sensibility while handling them, while making movies. Please note, rectify your mistake right now and make sure that you do not repeat them in the future. In case you want to bring your fans closer to you, in case you want to uh, clarify about your stand regarding your respect for the fans and their beliefs. The Bhagavad Gita is basically 7,000 years old. It has 18 chapters, number 23 to 40 are there. And there are 700 shlokas. Basically, the Mahabharata has around 200,000 verses or shlokas. The Gita has 700 shlokas or verses or couplets, and all of them are pure divine substance, basically. I mean, it's very hard to explain about the divinity or the nectar. There is there is no beginning or no end to the divine knowledge conveyed by Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and there is enormous amount of wisdom flowing out of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. As you can see, the if you read it, you will know that it has been written or created uh, with extreme care and perfection. If there is perfection, it is here. It is nowhere else. There are many Hindu scriptures which have been written very well, which are of grand proportions, which are of enormous respect and reverence. You cannot take them lightly. You cannot take them casually. You cannot mishandle them. I'll show about them very briefly. This is a list of the most important scriptures of Hindus or Sanatanis. Please see, please see all of them. There are Vedas, which are four. There are Brahmanas, which are 16. There are Aranyakas, which are four. There are Upanishads, which are 108. There are Vedangas, which are six. And there are Upvedas, which are five. There are Puranas, which are 36. These are basically very important educational texts. Puranas are divided uh, between 18 Mahapuranas and 18 Uppuranas. There are six Darshanas. There are 18 Smritis, and above all, or last but not the least, there are two Itihasas. Itihas literally means history. but these texts are history plus mythology plus they are the fountains of wisdom. There are two itihasas, the holy Ramayana and the holy Mahabharata. Mahabharata or Mahabharat includes Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and Gita itself has developed into a separate and independent scripture of extreme importance. So please understand that all these texts or scriptures cannot be mishandled, cannot be disrespected. You cannot disrespect the scriptures or the texts or books of any other religion, including Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Judaism, and any other faith. Then why the partiality with Hinduism or Sanatan Dharma? You cannot take Hinduism lightly. You cannot take Hindus lightly. You cannot take the devotees of Lord Krishna lightly. Please note that we are tolerant, but we are not foolish. Please note we are tolerant, but we are not weak. Our tolerance and our calmness uh, emanates and comes from the holy scriptures which have been shown to you, which have been instrumental in our upbringing and our lives, and which have been instrumental in shaping our lives, and because of the upbringing in our households. Basically, we are tolerant people, but at the same time, we will not tolerate in case you and any other person disrespects our scriptures, books, culture, and our civilization and our dharma. Please note, you very well know that there are certain punishments of blasphemy in Christianity, and uh, the main punishment is basically death. That is there in Islam. Entire world knows that death penalty is the bare minimum for anyone who commits blasphemy. They do not even investigate. They just encourage each and every person, each and every other person, and the alleged culprit is either tortured or he or she is tortured and killed. Death is definitely a punishment as per Quran and Islam. So you have basically taken a safer path. You have not selected Christianity for blasphemy. You have not selected Islam for blasphemy. You have selected Hinduism for blasphemy. And you have used or misused Srimad Bhagavad Gita in a totally wrong and historically incorrect situation and scene. You have not done your homework and research very well, Mr. Nolan. You have done your research for almost everything very well. You have done very well, you have researched very well, but at the same time, you have not gone into the real situation or the real past, which confirms about the use of uh, narration of the verse of Srimad Bhagavad Gita by Mr. Oppenheimer. Uh, Basically, you have used the 32nd verse of the 11th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. I'll briefly describe the scene. Uh, Florence Pugh's character uh, is in a romantic relationship with Mr. Oppenheimer, and they are in a in an intimate situation. Both are nude, and Florence Pugh's character, basically, she is a communist, and she uh, casually looks at the library of Mr. Oppenheimer, picks the Sanskrit text, uh, which has been the name has been blurred in certain jurisdictions because of the censorship, but it is clear that it is Srimad Bhagavad Gita because of the look of the book. The book is picked by the particular lady. She holds it in front of her bare chest and shows it to uh, Mr. Oppenheimer, or Mr. Cillian Murphy, who is under her on the bed. The book, the she picks a particular verse or couplet or shloka. The shloka is shown, and she asks Mr. Oppenheimer about what is written in the verse. And when he explains briefly, she says, "No, read it properly and then explain." So Mr. Oppenheimer reads the shloka, and he says that this is the translation. Now I am become death, destroyer of worlds. Now I am become death, destroyer of worlds. This is a paraphrased version of the original Sanskrit shloka, as I can see after my research and reading. The basically the shloka is here. Uh, I mean, what have you done, Mr. Nolan? You have shown the reading of the particular text during nudity and sexual intercourse. That's not right. That's not done. Even in Christianity and in your culture, it's not acceptable. You cannot do all this casually. Just because Indians are your fans or Hindus are your fans, and several people across the globe uh, admire you. You cannot be very casual and disrespectful towards them. You cannot be arrogant and rude. You cannot be arbitrary. I'm going to the original text. This is the book. It is extremely well written. So I have in front of me uh, chapter number 11 and verse number 32. First Sanskrit. This is the Sanskrit. Shri Bhagwan Vach Kalo Asmi Lokshaya Krit Pravridho Lokans Mahartu Meh Pravatta Tirtepi Tvam Na Bhavishyanti Sarve Ye Vastitah Pratyanikedeshu Yodha. That was Sanskrit, original and clear text. The translation is basically: the blessed Lord said, I am the mighty world destroying time, now engaged in destroying the worlds. Even without you, none of the warriors arrayed in hostile armies shall live. I'll repeat it for you. The blessed Lord said, I am the mighty world destroying time, or Kal, now engaged in destroying the worlds. Even without you, none of the warriors arrayed in hostile armies shall live. The Lord is trying to convey that even if you or Arjun do not do your deed, even if you do not do what is needful or what is required or what is rightful, I, the Kal or time or the supreme power, shall intervene and shall do the needful. The ultimate deed or consequence shall come and shall be there, even if the bad people are not killed by you or destroyed by you, or the deed is not done, I will intervene, or I will do whatever is necessary and righteous, and whatever is permitted as per my dharma, and the dharma to be followed. The basically is the book is a source of wisdom and dharma, or the rightful conduct. So that's what is the meaning. So the basic the shloka is not just an encouragement for war. Please do not understand or misunderstand that the Holy Gita is encouraging war or unnecessary destruction. The book is basically encouraging about karma, and the uh, selfless karma has to be done regardless of the consequences. Everyone has to rise, everyone has to have faith in God. The God himself or herself is speaking to the devotee or the ordinary mortal. The book is saying a lot, but it is saying in the context of the uh, conversation of the supreme power with a normal, ordinary mortal. Now, Mr. Oppenheimer is no god. He was no god, you are no god. Mr. Oppenheimer was definitely an admirer of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. He was respectful towards it. He was a very good linguist. He understood it very well. I have done my research. He basically spoke about the particular shloka or verse uh, during a 1949 uh, uh, interview, and subsequently in 1965 in the NBC News documentary. He basically reflected upon his thoughts during the testing of the atomic bombs in the particular lab, which was a part of the Manhattan Project, commissioned by the government of United States. Mr. Oppenheimer was saying that I was in a state of dilemma or overwhelmed feelings. And my feelings were overwhelmed, and I mean, he was trying to convey that yes, there are moral issues related to the building of the bomb and the use of it. But when the testing was done and the entire sky was lit because of the explosion, his thoughts um automatically brought the particular shloka of Sanskrit, and words like "Now I am become death, destroyer of worlds" came to his mind. And that is a correct way of presenting it. He has used a paraphrase version, not the entire detailed shloka. You have uh, you have picked the particular shloka or the historical narrative and placed it in your selfish storytelling. You have deliberately shown that during intercourse, the particular divine or holy verse is stated or narrated. Why did you do it? It's not done. Please note, it's not done. In any culture, in any good civilization, it's not done. You have to stop somewhere. You have to, as a filmmaker, you have to stop somewhere. Please do not cross the lines. The tolerant can do a lot against you, but we are putting wisdom into your head. Please know, you are no god. You are just an ordinary mortal director. You make good films. Please do so. You do uh, very well, and we admire you. But at the same time, we are cautioning you. Please don't take up the law and the divinity and the sentiments in your hands. I'll tell you more about Bhagavad Gita. You will understand. There are many. You have rightly and very appropriately shown uh, Mr. Albert Einstein, who has been the most respected scientist of the 20th and the 21st century. Mr. Einstein was a great admirer of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. These were his words. These are the exact words. When I read the Bhagavad Gita and reflect about how God created the universe, everything else seems superfluous. I have made the Bhagavad Gita as the source of my inspiration and guide for the purpose of scientific investigation and formation of my theories. That was his quote. And he had many other good things to say about Srimad Bhagavad Gita. He was an amazing person. I wish that I had seen him or I got the opportunity to see him. But he was a person of the past, and we admire him. And there are many other important people. All of them are very important, as you will recognize. Uh, Another person is Mr. Ralph Waldo Emerson, the 19th century American essayist, lecturer, and philosopher. He said, I owed a magnificent day to the Bhagavad Gita. It was the first of books. It was as if an empire spoke to us, nothing small or unworthy, but large, serene, consistent, the voice of an old intelligence which in another age and climate had pondered and thus disposed of the same questions which exercise us. Unquote. So, those were his thoughts. You can see the kind of admiration he had. Next is Mr. Henry David Thoreau, who was a 19th century American author and poet, and he needs no introduction. He said, quote, in the morning, I bathe my intellect in the stupendous and cosmogonal philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita, in comparison with which our modern world and its literature seem puny and trivial. Unquote. Amazing. Brilliant thoughts. Brilliant thoughts. You will also agree with me. Next is Mr. Herman Hesse. He was a Nobel Prize winner. He was a 20th century German Swiss poet. He said, quote, the marvel of the Bhagavad Gita is its truly beautiful revelation of life's wisdom, which enables philosophy to blossom into religion. Unquote. Amazing. Beautiful thoughts, beautiful thoughts. There are so many other people. I cannot cover all of them during a short span of time. And there are so many things. Bhagavad Gita itself has no beginning and no end. And I cannot cover about it in a short span of time. But these are the thoughts and enormous amount of research papers which can be dealt with somewhere else. I mean, there is limited time and limited patience, so we cannot take up everything. I advise you and other people, other admirers, to read more and more about Srimad Bhagavad Gita, its greatness, and the Hindu civilization and the philosophy and the Hindu way of life, which has always uh, advocated or encouraged about uh, the concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, or the universal togetherness and well-being. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. We basically think and feel that entire humanity or entire life on this planet is one family. We are tolerant people, and we believe that we can do great things together. Please have some respect. Please have some sensibility and understanding. You cannot cross the line. And I have done my research. Uh, Coming to the concept of blasphemy, I will tell you. I'll tell you a lot. I mean, I have basically covered two important dictionaries. One is Oxford Dictionary, and the other one is Cambridge Dictionary. Blasphemy. This is very important and very sensitive. Blasphemy means, as per the Oxford Dictionary, behavior or language that is offensive or shows a lack of respect for God or religion. You have done exactly that. Your entire cast and crew have done that. Kindly apologize. Kindly rectify. Cambridge Dictionary says blasphemy means something that you say or do that shows you do not respect God or a religion. Again, the same thing. These are English universities and your English dictionaries, and you are yourself an Englishman. So please understand and do not commit blasphemy. I've done my research. I can say a lot, but I'll not take much time. I'm referring to the farewell speech of Oppenheimer. It's a very long speech, and it shows his psyche, his turmoil, his dilemma. He was definitely in a state of dilemma because of the uh, decision to make the bomb, the scientific discussions and debates, the moral discussions and debates, the use of the bombs, the situation when the entire product or the innovation uh, went out of the hands of the scientists, and the armed forces used the bombs against the innocent people and the creatures of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The aftermath was also there. It was terrible. The bombing was terrible. It is very, very hard to explain about the suffering, and no one should use the bombs and their improvements. Always, the peaceful use has to be there, and there has to be some amount of care and caution while handling nuclear technology. Coming to the Oppenheimer farewell speech, uh, as I can see, he never apologized. During his career and life, he never apologized openly and expressly, but you can understand from his interviews and other evidences that he had a moral dilemma. He had some amount of caution for anyone who was trying to learn from him, or someone or anyone who wanted to hear from him. During his farewell speech, said he said, I think rightly, there was probably no place in the world where the development of atomic weapons would have a better chance of leading to a reasonable solution and a smaller chance of leading to disaster than within the United States. I believe all these things that people said are true, and I think I said them all myself at one time or another. He reflected on different aspects of the uh, process before and during the bombing, after the bombing. There was politics definitely, but Mr. Oppenheimer was more into science than into politics, and he was addressing a gathering of scientists who came to say goodbye to him. And Mr. Oppenheimer moved on to other responsibilities after the particular farewell, and it was November 2nd, 1945. He moved on to other responsibilities, but the Manhattan Project was over. There was a farewell speech, Mr. Oppenheimer succeeded definitely. He was rightly uh, happy and content as a scientist, but at the same time, he was and we are concerned and pained because of the consequences of the success. I think every scientist faces this kind of dilemma and confusion and sadness. And then he says there was some evil of secrecy, but science has to be in the public domain. There was secrecy regarding the atomic bomb. There were challenges from communists and several other powers, including Nazis. So there was a secrecy. He went on to say he cautioned thereafter. I think that these efforts to diffuse and weaken the nature of the crisis make it only more dangerous. I think it is for us to accept that it is a very grave crisis to realize that these atomic weapons, which we have started to make, are very terrible, that they involve a change, that they are not just a slight modification. To accept this and to accept with it the necessity for those transformations in the world which will make it possible to integrate these developments into human life. He was cautioning people, and he said, I think that in order to handle the common problem, there must be a complete sense of community responsibility. He was basically advocating for a better and improved cooperation between the world powers and the humanity in general and the people in general. He was advocating about the community responsibility. Mm, he said that it is a new field, definitely. The nuclear technology is a new field. As a scientist, he had to welcome it, definitely. But at the same time, he was cautioning people. He said it is a new field in which just the novelty and the special characteristics of the technical operations should enable one to establish a community of interest, which might almost be regarded as a pilot plant for a new type of international collaboration. The only unique end can be a world that is united and a world in which war will not occur. It was a romantic hopefulness that did not happen. There was no end to war. The wars continued. There were many wars after that, after the Second World War. And we can see why this happens because of the human selfishness, because of human arrogance, and because of the irrationality, which is overwhelming. Then Mr. Oppenheimer says the one point I want to hammer home is what an enormous change in spirit is involved. The change in spirit is regarding the scientists and the scientific endeavors. Then Mr. Oppenheimer says it is not only among scientists that there are wise people and foolish people. And he said he gave some respects to non-scientists, other individuals, engineers, students, and other intellectuals, and many other people. And he said, I had for a long time the feeling of the most extreme urgency. And I think maybe there was something right about that. There was a period immediately after the first use of the bomb when it seemed most natural that a clear statement of policy and the initial steps of implementing it should have been made, and it would be wrong for me not to admit that something may have been lost and that there may be tragedy in that loss. There was definitely a tragedy. He was definitely a witness to a tragedy. He was requested to make or develop a bomb with the help of a team of scientists, renowned scientists. And as per the request and as per the patriotic concerns during the Second World War, they made the bomb. But at the same time, there was an enormous amount of confusion, dilemma, and great feeling of sadness. I'm sure there were people who were forthcoming in terms of the development and use of bombs, but certain people were reluctant, definitely. Uh, And if you read and research, you will understand. Mr. Oppenheimer then says, Uh, I I think that we have no hope at all if we yield in our belief in the value of science, in the good that it can be to the world, to know about reality, about nature, to attain a gradually greater and greater control of nature, to learn, to teach, to understand. I think that if we lose our faith in this, we stop being scientists. We sell out our heritage. We lose what we have most of value for this time of crisis. But there is another thing, we are not only scientists, we are men too. We cannot forget our dependence on our fellow men. I mean, not only our material dependence, without which no science would be possible, and without which we could not work. I mean also our deep moral dependence, that the value of science must lie in the world of man. The value of science must lie in the world of man, and all our roots lie there. These are the strongest bonds in the world, stronger than those even that bind us to one another. These are the deepest bonds that bind us to our fellow man. That's it. He ended his speech after that. Mr. Julius Robert Oppenheimer was a great scientist. He was a great theoretical physicist of the last century, and he was probably one of the uh, scientists who were great successors of the legendary Mr. Albert Einstein. And correctly, you have shown that dialogue between these two great people, and it's very fascinating. The movie has shown so many scientists, and we thank you for that. Uh, it was an experience to cherish. As a viewer, as a fan, I uh, have admired the continuous presence of so many scientists in front of me in the uh, movie and our entire movie experience. At the same time, I want to highlight that Mr. Oppenheimer has been incorrectly presented by you in certain aspects. Mr. Lewis Strauss, who was closely associated with Mr. Oppenheimer and who was shown in a negative light by you, was not entirely bad. Mr. Lewis Strauss needs particular attention. As I have read during my research, Mr. Lewis Strauss was the he was the only person who had advocated for the use of the developed atomic bombs uh, on an uninhibited island near Japan, just to display about the threat to Japan and the need to end the war. This has been totally ignored by you, Mr. Nolan. Kindly go through the history once again. Mr. Lewis Strauss had certain political uh, inclinations, and he was instrumental in many things. Some of these things have been shown correctly, but his advisory role in the peaceful and harmless use of the atomic bombs has been completely ignored by you. There were few other errors in the movie I will show. The blasphemy is the top most definitely. The incorrect use of or the misuse of Srimad Bhagavad Gita is at the top. It is a grave or gross blunder by you. It needs apology as well as rectification, as well as cautionary writing and direction in the future. I'll take you to other errors in the movie. There are few factual distortions. The accomplishment of nuclear fission has been incorrectly shown in the movie. You have shown many scientific achievements and the processes very nicely, but nuclear fission needs more attention from you and others. You have missed to adequately show the mathematical error of German physicist Werner Heisenberg that prevented Nazi Germany from developing its own atomic bomb. Then you have erred in presenting Mr. Strauss, Mr. Lewis Strauss, who had some humanistic streak. And the Holocaust would have been avoided if his advice would have been taken seriously. Then you have incorrectly shown the poisoned apple scene. You have incorrectly and recklessly shown that during his younger days or undergraduate days, Mr. Oppenheimer had poisoned the apple to be consumed by his teacher or the professor, and then suddenly the scene shows that Mr. Oppenheimer corrected his mistake. He uh, pushes the poisoned apple, and a life was saved. Mr. Oppenheimer's grandson, the actual grandson, has protested regarding that scene, and there is no historical certainty on the incident. There is no absolutely no historical record regarding the poisoned apple scene. That is not right. You cannot show anyone's life or story like that. Then the context of Gita is not right. And apart from that, mostly the movie is all right. It's very well made and very well presented. And overall, I'll say a few things. Mr. Julius Robert Oppenheimer was definitely a conflicted man. You have shown it correctly. The acting has been brilliant. The acting of Mr. Cillian Murphy has been superb, amazing. Others like Mr. Robert Downey Jr. and Mr. Tom Conti and few other people, few other actors has been superb, amazing. I mean, all of them have been in sync with each other. They have been so remarkable. Uh, Much of the 3 hour biopic is rooted in verifiable facts, as I have concluded, largely historically accurate. That's my conclusion. The setting the atmosphere on fire during the Trinity test was a real fear. Yes, you're right. The nuclear or atomic chain reaction maybe has no end. Uh, it The explosion continues, the chain reaction continues, the nuclei spread, and I mean there is bombing of tiny particles, and the resultant chain reaction, the explosion or the expansion of the particles causes uh, destruction of the surrounding. And if the reaction continues for a very very long time, the atmosphere can be destroyed. The fear is real. The fear is actually real. It did not happen. The atmosphere was nearly destroyed but not totally destroyed. The concern and the fear was correctly displayed. Amazing, you have done well. You have correctly shown the about the consequences of um using the nuclear technology in a very destructive manner, in a very reckless and careless manner. In case anyone misuses the nuclear or atomic technology, the atmosphere can be destroyed, the innocent lives can be lost, that the environment can be damaged for a very very long time or permanently. The fear is real. Nuclear disarmament is the need of the hour. And I once again congratulate you and your team. Amazing, good work. But please go through all these historical facts and the mythological facts. Particularly, there is a need to understand the Hindu or Sanatan Dharma and the civilization and the scriptures and the way of life and our sanskars or the manners which are displayed by us, the people we are. Please understand. We hope that you make good movies in the future. I am your fan. There are many others. Mr. Nolan, you are one of the few filmmakers who are scientifically inclined, who are inclined towards science. You have done so well during the making of Memento, during the making of The Prestige, during the Dark Knight trilogy, during Interstellar. It's my favorite movie. Interstellar, amazing, brilliant work, top class. Interstellar, there was Tenet. The music of all these movies was amazing. The cinematography was amazing. The writing was brilliant. And you are a very careful filmmaker. You're a very good filmmaker. You can inspire and teach. So please be very careful while handling sensitive topics, particularly the scriptures of people who are known to be tolerant, who are known to be the source of wisdom and rationality for the entire humanity, for the entire planet. We are those people. Please understand. Please respect. If you want to have respect and love, you have to do the same, first of all. Once you have respect and love and care for the people who are associated with you, then only you will get love and respect and care. With those words, I end my presentation. All the best to you, and it is sincerely requested that you apologize for the blasphemy. You rectify wherever it is possible. Either delete the scene in entirety or show a particular apology or do some correction or blurring or anything you want. The damage has been done. You have to rectify it. You have to minimize the damage. You have to minimize the pain and the suffering. It hurts here. So please do not continue with the damage and the suffering and the infliction of the pain. So correct, rectify, and kindly be very careful. All the best to you. Be very careful and more accurate in your work and in your movies. I hope that I can continue to be your reviewer and your fan, and in some ways, maybe I can meet you. If I can meet you, it will be a dream come true for me. Thank you so much for listening patiently. I thank you, Mr. Christopher Nolan. I thank all the viewers for listening very patiently. I'm sorry if the video has been long, but it was necessary. It was necessary to have a direct dialogue with Mr. Nolan, and it was necessary to raise the right issues. Uh, Thank you so much, and thanks for the patience. And namaste, namaste. Jai Shri Krishna, Jai Shri Krishna, Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and goodbye. Take care. Have a good life. Bye bye.